I'm really thankful to them for giving me this opportunity to share some thoughts on management of breast cancer with some special focus on Navelbin, that is their Fresenius Kabi's Vinorelbin in breast cancer. So to start the discussion, so we all know that breast cancer is a big problem. If you look at the global incidence, then it is the second most common cancer worldwide and the second most leading cause of cancer deaths. And if you look at India, then it is the most common cancer now as per the Globocan 2018 in taking both men and women together, and it is the number one leading cause of cancer deaths. So, breast cancer is a big problem for us, and that is what I said that in India, one woman is diagnosed with breast cancer every 4 minutes, and one woman dies of breast cancer every 6 minutes. So, if you look at the perspective in this way, it is a huge number. And when you look at the other cancers, they come a very distant second when we look at the prevalences, of the other cancers as compared to breast cancer. Another aspect of breast cancer in India is that most of the breast cancers in India are locally advanced and metastatic at presentation, as against early breast cancers in the West. So thereby the overall load of metastatic breast cancer becomes too much. Breast cancer utilizes all the treatment modalities that are utilized in all cancers. So surgery, radiotherapy, chemotherapy, hormonal therapy, targeted therapy, and of course supportive and palliative therapy. And when we look at the chemotherapy section, so we have the anthracyclines and the taxanes being the most active compounds and most used compounds for chemotherapy in breast cancer, whether you take it in the adjuvant, neoadjuvant setting or whether you take it in the palliative setting. So taxanes means paclitaxel, docetaxel, and of course, nowadays we are having the nanoparticle formulations and albumin-bound formulations also coming up with some better response rates and better outcomes, even in the neoadjuvant setting with better PCR rates. And in the anthracyclines, we have the traditional doxorubicin and epirubicin, and apart from taxanes and anthracyclines, the most traditional compound that have been used for in breast cancer includes the antimetabolites like gemcitabine, 5-fluorouracil or capecitabine, and the vinca alkaloid that is vinorelbine, and the recently introduced eribulin. When you look at the hormonal therapy, of course, we have the estrogen receptor modifiers or blockers, that is tamoxifen, raloxifene. Tamoxifen is the most commonly used. Then we have the direct estrogen receptor destructors like fulvestrant, and then we had aromatase inhibitors, anastrozole, letrozole, exemestane. And then we have now the targeted therapy, which are targeting HER2, like trastuzumab, pertuzumab, edotrastuzumab, and lapatinib. Then we have targeted therapy which modifies the resistance in hormone receptor positive breast cancer, that is mTOR inhibitor, everolimus, and the CDK4/6 inhibitors. Now we have palbociclib, ribociclib, abemaciclib. When you look at the general treatment choices, then the preferred breast cancer adjuvant systemic therapy. So, for node negative patients, whether when it is ERPR positive, we have mostly in the premenopausal women tamoxifen, and we have trastuzumab, and to combine them with chemotherapy, then we have in the node positive patients mostly. But when we look at the ERPR negative subgroup, then what we have to realize is that if they are HER2 positive, then probably we might utilize the targeted treatment. But if they are TNBCs, then it is only chemotherapy which is the forms the baseline of treatment. Similarly, for postmenopausal women, the concept is similar, except the differences are mostly in the case of hormonal treatment. Now, looking at the molecular subtypes of breast cancer and their current standard of treatment, so we have luminal A, which are mostly low grade tumors, which have usually presentation in low tumor burden. Only when they are high tumor burden, they are grade 3, and they are usually strongly ER/PR positive, HER2 negative. Mostly they will have only bone metastasis or nodal metastasis, and hormonal therapy forms the best treatment, and usually chemotherapy and targeted therapy doesn't work there. In luminal B, we have HER2 enriched and HER2 negative. So the luminal B are usually tumors which are low ER/PR positive, and they might be HER2 positive or negative. If they are HER2 positive, then of course anti-HER2 treatment plus chemotherapy does work in them, because these are inherent hormonal resistance. But if they are HER2 negative, then of course hormonal therapy is one of the good lines of treatment with or without chemotherapy. When we have HER2 positive type, where hormonal therapy usually doesn't work because they are inherently hormone receptor resistant as well as hormone receptor negative most of the times. And what works in them mostly is chemotherapy in combination with anti-HER2 treatment. And then we have the triple negative, that is the basal type of tumors, which are usually ER/PR HER2 negative, where the only line of management, as I said, is chemotherapy. Now, coming to the focus of today's discussion, that is vinorelbine. So, it is a semi-synthetic vinca alkaloid, and it is indicated in combination with cisplatin for the first-line management of patients with locally advanced or metastatic non-small cell lung cancer. We must remember that as adjuvant treatment in resected squamous cell cancers as well as adenocarcinomas, vinorelbine plus cisplatin was the first trial which showed good benefit, and even in the meta-analysis, this is the preferred treatment. Now, pemetrexed plus cisplatin have come up with good evidence in adenocarcinomas in the adjuvant line, but still in the squamous cell carcinomas, the first line of or the best adjuvant treatment still remains vinorelbine plus cisplatin. Vinorelbine is also utilized as a single agent for the treatment in patients with metastatic non-small cell lung cancers, mostly in later lines after failure of first line as well as second line taxanes. And it is also utilized in metastatic breast cancer in most of the patients who have failed the first line of chemotherapy. Vinorelbine based chemotherapy as well as targeted therapy have been utilized in clinical trials in the neoadjuvant and adjuvant setting. However, the usage of vinorelbine in adjuvant and neoadjuvant setting is practically very less because of the much better tolerated taxanes, which have almost replaced the vinorelbine. When we look at the mechanism of action, we must remember that it is a M phase specific compound, and they act on the mitotic phase of the cell cycle. So these vinca alkaloids inhibit the assembly of the microtubules by binding to the tubulin, resulting in the dissolution of mitotic spindle required for chromosome division. The different vinca alkaloids apart from vinorelbine are vincristine and vinblastine. So on the right, we can see a dividing cell with already two sets of chromosomes. And whenever in normal mitosis, what happens is that there is the microtubulins assembled together so that they can pull apart the two chromosomes for adequate cell division. Now, because of this vinca alkaloid, it prevents this arrangement of these microtubules, so the two chromosomes are not allowed to separate and the cell division doesn't occur, and hence it is inhibited. We must also remember that taxanes exactly act in an opposite way by causing these assembled microtubules by assembled microtubules by not allowing them to disassemble. But here Vinca alkaloids, they simply dissolve these tubulins, resulting in failure of assembly. When we look at the different recommended doses, so as single agent, vinorelbine is mostly recommended at dose of 25 to 30 milligram per meter square, administered intravenously over 6 to 10 minutes once weekly. We generally utilize it as a day 1, day 8, Q21 day cycles. In combination therapy, the usual dose is 25 to 30 milligram per meter square is maintained, while the frequency of administration is usually reduced. In combination with cisplatin, 100 milligram per meter square, the recommended dose is 25 milligram per meter square, administered on day 1, day 8, day 15, and day 21 of a 28-day cycle. That is what where cisplatin is given 100 milligram per meter square on the day 1. Even with higher doses of cisplatin, this has been used as 30 milligram per meter square once weekly. But of course, the toxicities are higher. And of course, dose modification is indicated whenever there is neurological toxicities, hematological toxicities, and hepatic toxicities, mostly grade 2 or more. Looking at this article which reviewed vinorelbine in the treatment of advanced breast cancer, so it is an old article, but what it says is that vinorelbine has shown activity in many types of tumor and currently registered as one of the important chemotherapy options in advanced breast cancers as well as non-small cell lung cancers. Uh, it has been also used in other cancer types like lymphomas, gynecologic malignancies, and prostate cancers. It is generally has a very favorable safety profile and may be suitable for use in special populations, even elderly or frail patients. Um, in combination of vinorelbine and gemcitabine has also been widely studied and demonstrated to be safe and effective. And in combination of vinorelbine and trastuzumab in patients with HER2 expressing tumors have also given exciting results. So, coming to metastatic breast cancer, so we all know it is a complex multi-step process of tumorigenesis and dynamic interactions between the tumor cell and the host, which leads to the metastasis of the tumor from the primary to the different sites. Of course, these are the important mechanisms by which metastasis occurs. So there is a primary tumor growth, then there is angiogenesis and proliferation, then there is angioinvasion by the metastatic cell and intravasation into the vessels. Thereby, they circulate in the vessels as tumor emboli or circulating tumor cells. And these circulating tumor cells, whenever they find a new organ which is suitable for their survival, they arrest themselves in that new organ in a static state, and there is extravasation of these cells, and then the homing takes place whereby these cells are settled in a new organ in initially a non-dividing and a G0 phase, and then whenever there is a stimulus which causes them to proliferate, then they are activated from a dormant phase to a proliferating phase. If the immunity is better, then these dormant cells may be killed by the immunity and then which might lead to their apoptosis. Usually these begins with a single cells which really grows to micrometastasis and then clinically relevant large visible metastasis even on scan. This is the treatment landscape of all the different treatment options in metastatic triple negative breast cancer, as well as the different challenges is in hormone positive as well as the HER2 positive breast cancer. And vinorelbine is definitely shown as one of the options. Uh, this article again published in 2018 on different options of treatment. quite states that vinorelbine is safe and can be used alone or in combination with other drugs in the treatment of metastatic breast cancer. Vinorelbine treatment shows 35 to 50% response rate when used as first line treatment in metastatic breast cancer. So when you look at the different agents and their response rates, so vinorelbine has shown one of the highest response rates so far as single agent chemotherapy is concerned, and the response rate is usually to the tune of 35 to 50% when used in the first line. However, the main adverse effects are superficial phlebitis. It is an extravasant drug, so we have to be very careful when we are using vinorelbine. Peripheral neuropathy, neutropenia. So vinorelbine is one of the compounds which is causing more myelosuppression among the other vinca alkaloids. Vincristine has the least, and vinblastine probably has myelosuppressive activity between vincristine and vinblastine. Leukopenia, myelosuppression, and gastrointestinal toxicities. So abdominal pain and constipation is one of the manifestations of these drugs. And vinorelbine is one drug which can also cause diarrhea as against vinblastine and vincristine. Vinorelbine plus epirubicin combination have also showed very good response rates and PFS rates when we compare to other combination chemotherapies. However, we also know that in metastatic setting, there is no combination treatment which has showed a overall survival benefit, but they only show a better response rates and PFS. In HER2 negative subset metastatic breast cancer patients who have failed anthracyclines and taxanes, vinorelbine plus gemcitabine combination has also showed a better PFS as compared to vinorelbine treatment alone. So we can utilize a combination treatment with vinorelbine also if you want faster response and a better progression-free survival. This is another study which studied the evaluation of vinorelbine based chemotherapy as the second or further line treatment in patients with MBC. So this study examined the response rates, response duration, and toxicity of vinorelbine and 5-fluorouracil or vinorelbine alone in pre-treated metastatic breast cancers, which was given in either second or third line. So it was a small study published in 2013. The vinorelbine plus 5-FU arm had only 53 patients, whereas the vinorelbine arm had 50 patients. Vinorelbine by used at a dose of 25 milligram per meter square day 1, day 8, and 5-FU 500 milligram per meter square day and day 1, day 8 in a 21-day cycle, whereas in a single agent it was utilized 30 milligram per meter square day 1, day 8 in a 21-day cycle. When we look at the results, so what we can see is that the progression-free survival for both the tumors were not significant, and the results were equal. If you look at the median progression-free survival, what we can clearly see that the median progression-free survival in both the arms was to the tunes of 40 weeks, that is somewhere near 6.5 months, which is quite impressive for any treatment. So these are the results. When you look at the CR rates, the 5-FU vinorelbine combination had better CRs, and the PRs were higher in vinorelbine. If you look at the response rates, including PR plus CR, then they were quite equal. When you look at the stable diseases, again, in the whole group, almost 43% patients had stable disease, and patients, if you look at who maintained either stable disease or response for 6 months, were much higher in the 5-FU vinorelbine group, that is 35% of patients as against 13%. If you look at the clinical benefit also, 50% patients had good clinical benefit for 6 months duration in the combination arm as against 33% the vinorelbine arm. If you look at the progressive disease, of course, single agent vinorelbine arm had higher patients having progressive disease. So this study, observed that the use of vinorelbine-based chemotherapy as second or third line treatment in patients with metastatic breast cancer who have progressed after anthracycline taxane regimen have led to a PFS of around 18 weeks for the entire study group, with 22 weeks and 16 weeks for patients who are treated with 5-FU vinorelbine combination and vinorelbine alone. The objective clinical benefit in terms of at least 6 months of stabilization or remission was observed in 42% patients of the entire group, with 50% patients in the combination arm and 33% patients in the single agent vinorelbine arm. And this combination treatment appeared to be more efficacious regimen, and vinorelbine based chemotherapy also showed a favorable toxicity profile, a tolerable profile. This is another study where vinorelbine was used with or without trastuzumab in metastatic breast cancer as a retrospective analysis. This was published in 2014. So, of course, the data of all the patients with MBCs receiving vinorelbine with or without trastuzumab during a 6-year period was reviewed in the institution. Patients received 25 to 30 milligram per meter square or 60 to 80 milligram per meter square of oral vinorelbine on day 1, day 8 of a 21-day cycle. These are the baseline characteristics, and we can see that they are quite matching so far as both the groups are concerned. And these are the results. So what we can see when we are using vinorelbine with or without trastuzumab in metastatic breast cancer first line as against later lines of treatment, so we can see that the greater benefit is in the first line. And when we are using in the first line, the median proportion of patients without progression is almost and the median PFS is almost reaching up to 8 to 9 months. We can clearly see both the graphs of first line and second or later lines being separated, clearly showing that if you are using it in the earlier lines, the benefit is higher. When you look at the OS analysis, what we can see is OS of patients who received vinorelbine with or without trastuzumab first line treatment as against the second line treatment was not significant. But when you look at the PFS difference is quite significant. These are the results in the table. So we can see clearly that the response rates are much higher in the first line, almost 2% CR and 42% partial responses, as against second line when we don't have any CR and almost 12% partial response only. So whenever vinorelbine is used, we should try to use it earlier line rather than in later lines. These are the results of either as monotherapy or with trastuzumab. So we can see the time to progression of patients who received vinorelbine as against vinorelbine plus trastuzumab. So the combination arm showed much higher results. Obviously, we know that the combination is going to favor. So what we concluded from these trial that vinorelbine based therapy is a valid first line and salvage option for patients with MBCs. In clinical situations where monotherapy is preferred, the response rates and time to progression were superior in first line treatment as compared to subsequent lines. Combination of vinorelbine and trastuzumab is highly effective in terms of time to progression and OS, and also vinorelbine effectively appears not to be modified by endocrine sensitivity of the tumor or metastasis location. This is another systematic review and meta-analysis of patients where combination of vinorelbine and lapatinib was used in HER2-positive metastatic breast cancer patients. We can clearly see there are almost 7-8 studies together which was studied in this meta-analysis. And it was a very extensive summary of data regarding this combination of vinorelbine plus lapatinib. And this combination appears to be an active and well-tolerated regimen in patients with metastatic HER2-positive breast cancers. A PFS of 5.4 months and a disease control benefit of in more than 50% cases were particularly compelling arguments that should warrant consideration of this drug combination for this patient population. And it may also serve as an alternative option for the palliative management of pre-treated patients with preservation of quality of life. Looking at the future directions of HER2 positive MBCs. So, apart from now, we are having these traditional chemotherapies. Now we are having exciting and drugs which are coming up in the pipeline, and we are all waiting. So this is tucatinib, and the HER2 climb study clearly showed that when you are using tucatinib 300 milligram twice daily, in patients who have been previously treated with at least trastuzumab and taxane, and without sort of untreated brain mets. These patients uh, had a very high, a better PFS as well as a better OS. Again, the Destiny study showed trastuzumab deruxtecan post multiple lines of treatment. Again, these patients showed a much better PFS as well as OS. The results of this study is also out, and this molecule trastuzumab deruxtecan really in heavily pretreated patients could give us very good results with response rates. Uh, this is also again in second line they have been compared with trastuzumab TDM1 after the progression on trastuzumab taxanes. Again, this study I'm not aware if the results are there. Um, so what is the important with this molecule is that the percentage change in the tumor size by HER2 IHC, we can see that most of the graphs are showing blue, and this is the waterfall plot which is showing the best changes and equally changing in patients who have strong IHC or as well as a weaker IHC. We can see that the median response rates in all of the patients are almost 44%, and those who have IHC2 positive it is almost 54%, and those who have hormone receptor positive as well as those who have had prior CDK4/6 inhibitor, there also the response rates were good, but the best response rates and the best duration of response and PFS was found in patients who are having a stronger IHC positive. This is again the Destiny study where trastuzumab deruxtecan was compared with chemotherapy. Again, this study is also released results and it has shown a superior PFS as well as the OS. Coming to the hormone receptor positive and HER2 positive subset, again, this is another very exciting study where they have tried using CDK4/6 inhibitor with HER2 inhibitor, that is trastuzumab with hormonal treatment. So, targeting all the guns, and they have also shown a very good response rates which was achieved with this, combination treatment. Clearly you can see that a much higher response rates with in the in the combination arm of CDK4/6 inhibitor plus fulvestrant plus trastuzumab. The PFS was also much superior, almost 3-month PFS benefit with abemaciclib plus trastuzumab plus fulvestrant. When you look at other HER2 targeted antibody drug conjugates, we have trastuzumab deokarmazine coming. Again, this is also a very, one of the potent drugs that is coming, which causes a proteolytic cleavage of the linker protein in the tumor microenvironment, which leads to activation of the pro-drug payload. And this active toxin is called DUBA, which alkylates the DNA, killing both dividing as well as the non-dividing cells, and therefore it has a bystander killing effect also. It's a phase 1 study where it was found to be safe with really good response rates around 33% patients, and mind you, all these patients they were heavily pre-treated patients. This is a TULIP study which is probably ongoing of trastuzumab deokarmazine versus physician choice of treatment. Another, novel HER2 targeted molecule is margetuximab, and this is another, molecule which has the same specificity and affinity to HER2 receptor as trastuzumab, with similar ability to disrupt the signaling. However, via the FC engineering with intent to activate immune responses, margetuximab has altered FC receptor affinity. So because the difference mainly is in the FC receptor affinity. So in trastuzumab, the wild type IG1 effector domains are mainly the affected, and it binds and activates the immune cells. But margetuximab, it has increased affinity for activating the FC gamma R3A and has decreased affinity for the inhibitory gamma. So it has much more activatory potential, and therefore because of this it enhances the adaptive immunity, enhances the immune activation. This is the SOFIA study, which is ongoing. The data cutoff has already been achieved in September 2019, and I think the results are awaited of margetuximab versus trastuzumab. So, as per the data cutoff, the PFS, both investigator assessed PFS as well as the central committee assessed. In both them, they have shown a better PFS as compared to trastuzumab. So, one of the drugs that probably is we are going to look into as an option to trastuzumab. The interim overall survival the data is also released, and it is showing that there is a median difference of 1.8 months, although it is not significant. And there is a pre-specified exploratory overall survival as looking at the CD16A 158F carriers. So when you are having this specific antibody type carrying in your genotype, so then the overall survival difference is very significant. We can see with a hazard of 0.7, the median overall survival difference is almost to the tune of 4 months. Looking at the safety analysis, again, safety was not so much different as compared to trastuzumab. No major safety signals with this molecule. So what implications it has is that HER2 targeted TKIs, they appear to be reasonable treatment. Tucatinib data is particularly strong. The trastuzumab deruxtecan, it is a major new therapy approved for HER2 positive MBCs in the third line in post neoadjuvant therapy as second line as against TDM1. Again, the results are awaited, and also been looked at HER2 low disease also in the Destiny study. And margetuximab, the benefits are unclear, but again, probably the CD16AF carriers, again, it can be of a much higher benefit also. Again, so this is the landscape of treatment in HER2 positive, and again, as we said that in this landscape also, vinorelbine as a combination chemotherapy with any of the anti-HER2 molecules is an option. So with this, I conclude my talk. Thank you for patient listening. If there are any questions, I would be happy to address. Thank you.
We may take few questions. Delegates, please. Sir is there. So I suppose there is no question. So before concluding, I'll take just less than 3 minutes from all of you to run a small, very small corporate video, and I request Ms. Shumana to unfold the video. Ms. Shumana.
Yes, thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much. So, good evening, everyone. Today, actually, basically, we have launched one new bag that is non-PVC bag. That bag I'll show you the video. This is basically non-PVC polyolefin bag. That bag can be mixed with 40 kinds of antibiotic, including oncology drug. So, just this video, I'll ask them to start how to use this bag. And there are separate port also, injection and infusion port, and port are also self-sealing port. So there is no chances of leakage also, and bag is also totally DEHP free, phthalate free. Just I'll show you the video how to use this bag. Thank you.
Infusion systems are an important part of overall surgical and ICU care. These systems are either open or closed. Examples of open infusion systems include glass and plastic bottles, while that of closed systems include intravenous bags. Research has revealed that open infusion systems are more prone to increasing the risk of hospital-acquired infections. Closed infusion systems are superior to open systems in preventing hospital-acquired infections. Hence, it is now time to break this chain of hospital-acquired infections. Fresenius Kabi has pioneered 100 years of excellence in clinical nutrition and volume therapy products. It is recognized by European regulatory authorities for promoting good manufacturing practices. Introducing the new innovation from the leaders in volume therapy worldwide, FreeFlex, the DEHP-free, non-PVC, environment-friendly solution to infusion therapy. Innovative injection pod. Rigid injection pod ensures the safe connection, prevention of needle stick injuries, and damaging of the bag during drug reconstitution. Self-sealing septum in the injection pod to prevent leakage after removal of the syringe. Sterilized at 121 degrees centigrade within the overwrap to maintain sterility until the bag is open. Environmentally friendly compared to PVC bags. Easy handling infusion. Check the solution composition, lot number, and expiry date. Inspect the container for damage or leakage. If damaged, do not use. Use opening aid to remove overwrap. Identify the blue infusion pod. Break off the blue tamper-evident cover from the FreeFlex infusion pod. Membrane below cover is sterile. Disinfection of the membrane is not necessary. Insert the spike until the clear plastic collar of the pod meets the shoulder of the spike. Use a non-vented set or closed air inlet. The self-sealing septum, which is a unique feature in FreeFlex bags, prevents leakage of the fluid, even as the bag is repeatedly spiked. Hang the bag on the infusion stand. Connect and adjust the flow rate. Easy handling. Drug preparation with a syringe. Use opening aid to remove overwrap. Identify the white injection pod. Break off the white tamper-evident cover from the FreeFlex injection pod. Transfer drug from the syringe into the FreeFlex bag. Use 18 to 23 gauge needles. Mark the injection pod with a red cap to indicate that the bag is filled with the drug. The self-sealing septum, which is a unique feature in FreeFlex bags, prevents leakage of the fluid, even as the bag is repeatedly spiked. Easy handling. Drug reconstitution. Throw the contents of the distilled water into a sterile syringe. Empty the distilled water into the medication vial. Shake well to reconstitute the drug within the vial. Draw the reconstituted drug into the syringe and empty the contents into the FreeFlex bag. FreeFlex provides improvement in bag design, materials, and functionality.
Thank you, delegates, for patience hearing. And we are at the fag end of the program. And being a host, the responsibility lies on us to express our sincere thanks as a vote of thanks. And I personally, on behalf of Fresenius Kabi, East Zone to be precise, on behalf of Tridev, myself, Jayanto, and Abhijit, we really sincerely express our sincere thanks to all the delegates. In spite of your busy schedule and in this testing time, you have taken up time. Especially, I like to convey my sincere thanks to Dr. Sanjeev Rai, Dr. Chandrakant, Dr. Pratik Mandal, and last but not the least, finally, to Dr. Vivek for your excellent lecture. And we are really honored for your august presence. And so with this, we are concluding today's program with a promise and note that we will once again reach out to all of you, new set of webinar. And thank you for your presence. Really, we are honored today for all of your presence. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot.